Today we are broadcasting from the Rancho Las Palmas Resort in Rancho Mirage, where I will be talking with author Paul Theroux about his work and his latest book, his 43rd, The Dead Hand, A Crime in Calcutta, from Houghton Mifflin Publishers. Paul Theroux is a prolific author and a celebrated travel writer, having completed, as we said, 43 works, including novels, short story collections, 2 children's books, a collection of articles and essays, and myriad travel books. I am pleased to welcome Paul Theroux. Paul, thank you so much for being with me today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Jacqueline.
Thank you. Paul, you just finished a presentation on The Dead Hand. Actually, you were talking about reading to the Northern Trust Desert Literary Society. Is this a stop on an ongoing speaking tour?
This is the last stop in a Northern Trust speaking tour in Southern California. I've been in La Jolla, in Las Vegas, in San Diego, Beverly Hills, Santa Barbara. So it's, I've done 7, and this is the 7th, and I'm delighted to be finished, but finishing in really what is one of the most beautiful places that I've been in Rancho Mirage.
Well, we all appreciate that, and you mentioned that during your discussion about the library and how much you liked it, and we seem to feel that way. But I do want to talk to you about Dead Hand. Dead Hand takes place in India, and give my listeners a brief overview of the story.
The story is, it's called A Dead Hand. A Dead Hand is about a crime in Calcutta, and it starts with a man getting a letter from a strange woman, from someone he doesn't know. An American author is in Calcutta, gets the letter, and the woman says, "I've got a bit of a problem. My son's friend woke up one day and found a body in his hotel room. A dead body in his room. What happened? Can you help us?" So the man thinks, the main character, the narrator thinks, I don't have anything to do, but I don't know whether I should get involved in this. But he does become involved. He becomes involved in the crime, in the woman who writes the letter, and then by degrees he helps solve the crime. And so it's a book about the crime, and it's also a book about being in Calcutta, in India today. Calcutta being really one of the oddest, largest, weirdest cities in the world, and certainly in India.
I would like you to explain the title, A Dead Hand. Of course, there is a subtitle, as we said, A Crime in Calcutta, but explain what a dead hand means.
Classically, a dead hand is a hand that cannot write. You'd say of a writer, say someone in Hollywood, someone's trying to write a script, or trying to write a novel, or maybe someone in Rancho Mirage for that matter, trying to write something. How's it going? You say, I don't know, I seem to have a dead hand. A dead hand is writer's block. It's, I can't do it. I cannot do it. Maybe I've lost it, the person might say. In the context of the book, though, there is an actual dead hand. What remains of the body in the hotel room is a hand. And so it has a double meaning in this context. And the hand, such as it is something that needs to be traced.
Well, that's interesting. I haven't gotten that far in the book yet. I did get a review copy of the book prior today and started reading it, so that's a very interesting thing to know about. Paul, you were born and grew up in Massachusetts, but after college you lived for a while in Italy, then Malawi and Uganda, both in Africa, Singapore, and England, and have traveled widely. How has this influenced your work?
I think that travel influenced me greatly. I think there are 2 great influences in a person's life. One is his family, his or her upbringing. So the parents are really important, either for better or worse. They can make you great, they can really diminish you. And you don't need inspiring parents. Sometimes you might get treated not very well, you might be treated badly, and you want to overcome that. And so that changed your life. But in terms of your question, travel was everything to me. I mean, getting away from the family meant a lot. And going to, you mentioned Italy and Malawi and Africa and India. That travel gave me amazing experiences and germs of ideas for novels. So I would say that it made me as a person, that I wouldn't be the same person if I had stayed home. I'm from Medford, Massachusetts. If I had stayed in Medford, I'd be quite a different person. I would be. I went to my high school reunion recently, and I thought, some people stayed, some people left, and the ones who stayed are themselves. Their lives haven't altered very much, but the ones who left and went far away are different people.
Well, and you talked a little bit too about your how books and the library influenced you, and certainly that's important. But what I'd like to discuss now is your involvement in a failed coup in Malawi to overthrow the president dictator, and as a result of that, you were thrown out of the Peace Corps. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, you don't get thrown out of the Peace Corps. What happens is you get terminated early.
Okay.
So I was terminated early. I was early termination. Oh man, you know, I wrote people used to ask me about this, being involved in a coup d'état, and I used to answer the question. And when I answered the question, I always added some details. The story never came out the same. So if I tell you the story of my involvement, I'm going to be adding details. So I won't tell you the whole story, except to say when we were in the Peace Corps, we were told two things. One was learn a language, learn to speak the language well of the country. It was called Chichewa. It's like Swahili. And the other thing we were told was get involved with the people, make some friends. So I made friends, but the friends that I made were all involved with trying to overthrow the government. Now I didn't know that at the time, but one of them went to the States, became ambassador to the United Nations, and denounced the government. Then he got in touch with me and he said, will you do me a favor? I've just denounced the government. My mother's still in the country. I think they're going to kill her. And by the way, I have a dinner service for 12 people, a lot of dishes. Can you get them out of the country? I thought, oh boy. You know, I was 22 years old. I had to drive his car. I got his mother. I got his dinner service for 12. And I drove his car from Malawi, Zambia, Tanzania, Kenya, to Uganda, where he went. Dropped off Mom, and broke a few dishes, but what the hell. And then I flew back. But he was involved in the coup, and to make a very, very long story short, the government accused me of helping him and of trying to, I had passed a message to someone. And so the president, who's called Dr. Hastings Banda was educated in the States. He was an older man. He was actually a doctor, medical doctor. And he said that the American ambassador should terminate me expel me from the country, and out I went. Is this a terrible thing? Well, it could have been a problem. I mean, I might have had a serious problem if these people had been successful. But what it did was, it was one of those youthful experiences that gave me a tremendous amount of material, and also it was a way of enlightening me about people's motives. So after that, when people asked me to do them favors, I used to think, is this going to have a sticky end? Is this going to help me? What's in it for him? So I was in Africa. People asked me for a lot of favors, and they would say, I remember in the Southern Sudan, when I was in Uganda, they said, can you help us? They were fighting in the Southern Sudan, sort of thing that they were doing even 20, 30 years later. And I said, you know, I think I'll take a pass on this. I think I'm not going to help you. I think I'll do something else. Find someone else to help you. And that was it. So it was a good lesson.
Well, I knew there was more to the story than the statement that I made, but yes, I can see where you got a lot of material for your book. And as you said, you were 22 then, and after Malawi you went to, am I saying that right? Is it Malawi?
Malawi,
yes. After Malawi you went to Uganda, where you met two people that were to become significant in your life and future. Tell us who those two people were.
I don't know who you're thinking of, but one might have been my wife.
Yes.
So I met my wife. She was an English woman who was teaching there, and the other, were you thinking of V.S. Naipaul? Yeah, the writer V.S. Naipaul, I met him there. So I scored on that one. I actually remember. And so I got married. My first child was born in Uganda. And then Naipaul, who won the Nobel Prize 3 years ago, was an older writer, older than I, 10 years older than me, successful, pretty successful. And we had a 30-year friendship. I mean, he was my mentor. Eventually, the friendship ended, and I wrote a book about him and about how I became a writer.
And we're going to talk about that a little later also. I think now what I'd like to ask you about, and first I'll make the statement that your first travel book, The Great Railway Bazaar, established you as a distinguished writer and an important travel writer. It was a bestseller and a Book of the Month club. You had also written around that time St. Jack, a novel about living in Singapore, which was made into a film starring Ben Gazzara. Now I'm going to ask you, this was in your early days, how did these two events affect you both as a person and as a writer? Here you're called now a distinguished writer, you've got an important book out, and one of your books is made into a film. How did that affect you, if at all?
It affected me for the better. Writers don't make a lot of money. They don't have a lot of prominence. You think of a writer as a powerful force, a personality. But the fact is, most people don't read books. So what does it matter whether they write a book or... but if a film is made, then, that affected my sales. The Great Railway Bazaar was a successful book, and that led to other travel books. The film, St. Jack, with Ben Gazzara, directed by Peter Bogdanovich, was a great film. It was, it's very well thought of as a film. Wes Anderson has talked nicely about it, and Quentin Tarantino has mentioned it favorably. The film was made in 1978 or 79. How long was that? 30 years ago? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So but it's still around. The way a great movie is. It affected me by giving me confidence and making me think I'm not wasting my time, and making me, giving me the confidence actually to do it again, to write another book, try to get another film made, to write another travel book. Success is a wonderful thing. It's very, very good for your morale. Anyone will tell you that. And I needed people to believe in me, and also I needed to support my family. So all positive things came out of it. Came out of having a successful travel book, The Great Railway Bazaar. I went on to write 7 more travel books. And films, other films were made. The Mosquito Coast was made with Harrison Ford, and a film called Half Moon Street, Sigourney Weaver and Michael Caine were in that. So other films. It was just wonderful, I thought. And I felt I'm very lucky that this good thing happened to me.
Well, I would imagine so. Okay, so we're going to pause now for a little break. This is Jacqueline Bachar, and I'm talking to you from the Rancho Las Palmas Resort in Rancho Mirage. My guest was Paul Theroux. The book involves tantric sex. What inspired you to emphasize this aspect between the male and female characters? And how did it affect your protagonist and the storyline?
Yes, tantric sex. It's a dead hand, tantric sex. There's a winner. There's a winner.
It is.
Yeah, it's not so much tantric sex, tantric massage, I guess you'd call it, which is a type of massage which I suppose you could call safe sex. So tantric massage. I was very interested in just the fact that India, which is a very puritanical country, has a tradition of tantric meditation, and it's an ancient form of meditation and of concentration, finding your kundalini, the inner light. So I thought that the protagonist, who's an American woman. I mean, who better than an American woman who goes to Calcutta, wants to involve herself in the lives of other people, but she also is a priestess. It's called a Dakini, a priestess of Tantra and the tantric arts. So I just thought this was absolutely irresistible. Now, I can't go into detail. People have to read A Dead Hand to find out the pleasures of tantric massage and how this impacts on the crime that's committed in the book, because it's a book about solving a crime. And I mean, there's a crime, and the woman is involved with the narrator of the book, and I can't give too much away. What I have to do is tempt people to buy A Dead Hand, and go to Borders, get the book, read it, and then they'll find out. I can't give it away. It's like the Maltese Falcon. If you were talking to Raymond Chandler, you couldn't say, well, so what actually happened? Anyway, I don't even know whether he could. I don't know whether he could explain in the Maltese Falcon what actually happened. But or I don't know, The Long Goodbye. So suffice to say that that at the center of this book is a woman who indulges in tantric massage.
And the man that gets involved with her, the writer, he becomes rather obsessive about her, does he not?
Yeah, I think, yes, he does become obsessed, because he's sort of half in love with her, and because she has power over him. And being touched, being massaged, the idea there's an assignation, it begins to mean a lot to him. And it's something anyone can identify with. You know, you're going to meet someone, you're going to have a rendezvous with this person. The fact that the person might be involved in a crime, I guess, is also quite a big deal in the book. But the idea that he has a lover who's not, he never sees her without her robes on, you know, but it's a very, very important aspect of her personality. And I think also something that I think about when I think about India, and I guess people in general, is no one's evil, no one's a saint. No, people have these two sides to their personality. You can find the nicest person, and they'll have a diabolical side to their personality. And you think, how could they be? Well, I think most people are like that. It's not a black and white situation. So that's also, I guess, a theme in the book. The idea that the woman who he's obsessed with and attracted to, who seems so wonderful, has another life.
Well, and it's also very mysterious, just as India is. As we think of India as being mysterious, I think that follows through in the story as well, at least from... I've only started it. I'm about a third of the way through, if that, but that's the feeling. I feel the mystery of India. Is that what you want us to feel, or doesn't it matter to you what we feel as we're reading it?
I want people to like the book. I want people to think, I'm playing golf this afternoon, but what I really want to do is rush home and finish this book. Is that, you know, it's the idea that you got a book going. You think, how does it end? I think books have to be pleasurable. They need to be true. They need to be true to life. It helps if you can learn something from them. It's not really about the mystery of India so much as the joy of living through the experience of the people in the book. I mean, I think that's true of reading in general. You got to love a book. I was reading a book recently called Game Change. It's about the election, the 2008 election. It's such a wonderful book. I mean, I'm not trying to sell Game Change, but I was thinking, I live in Hawaii, and I was having my lunch, so I'd finish my lunch and then just sit down and spend 15 to 20 minutes reading a couple of chapters of this book, and, you know, finding about John McCain or Obama or Sarah Palin. I was thinking, what's more fun than this? It's like eating a bag of potato chips.
That's a great analogy. Well, the one thing that I wonder about, and I think people that read it probably will wonder too, that writers often include aspects of themselves into their work. What made you put yourself as Paul Theroux in the novel?
I put myself in the novel. I appear in the novel. I'm not a very nice person in the book. I don't appear as, Hopalong Cassidy, who, by the way, was in Rancho Mirage, I believe, at one time.
They all were.
They all were. They all were. But I thought most people who read this book will think that the main character is me. And so if I introduce myself as a character, they'll suddenly realize, I get it, it's not him. And that if I introduce myself, I, as my character, can kind of throw light on the narrator, because the narrator's talking to you. You don't know whether he's telling the truth or lying or what kind of a person he is. But when the me character shows up, Paul's there, he's teasing this guy, and you realize that, well, that's the first time you hear his name, the name of the man in the book. Until then, you don't know what his name is, Jerry. Hi, Jerry. And you think, oh, God, I don't want to meet this guy. And then I start asking him a lot of questions. So I just thought it would be kind of a great thing to introduce. Anyone could do it, but it's not usually done. It's like J.K. Rowling appearing in Harry Potter. What if she did, though, It'd be kind of great, wouldn't it?
That would be fun. But yes, I hadn't seen it before, so I imagine it was fun for you to do that. I do want to get into some more of your writing, but I think the one thing that I would like to ask that our listeners would be interested in is, what is the moral of A Dead Hand and its relationship to India? Every book must have a moral, I would think.
I think, Jacqueline, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think a lot of books don't have a moral. What's the moral of Huckleberry Finn? I'm not sure.
Okay, we can scratch that one if you want to. But
no, not at all. I think there is some. I mean, I was speaking to you earlier of get involved with people's affairs. Sometimes, if you agree, someone says, "Do me a favor," the man gets involved. If he didn't get involved, there wouldn't be a book. But sometimes. Discretion is the better part of valor. Maybe if he hadn't, there'd be no story. I don't think there's a moral. I think there's a theme, and I think the theme is that really people have two distinct sides to their personalities, and that no one's thoroughly good or thoroughly bad. It's kind of interesting. Even you take the wickedest person in the world, or people demonize, say Bill Clinton. Okay, take Bill Clinton. Is he a wicked guy? Well. He certainly did some pretty questionable things. Huh? A 23-year-old intern? You must be joking. But does that overshadow what he did as a president, as a statesman? I don't think it overshadows him, but it shows really what a complicated person he is. John Edwards, same thing. You don't write him off because they did something, but also you take it into account and you say, what they did was wrong, but they also did some good things. So I mean, I think it's true of Mother Teresa, true of the person in the book. I don't think Mother Teresa did anything bad, but she's possibly more vain than you think she was, and so the idea of absolute evil is something that I don't subscribe to. So I don't think this is a moral of the book, but it's a sort of it might be a theme to it, which is that most people, if you dig down, you'll find more than you were expecting. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not that great. But in A Dead Hand, if I want to offer anything, it's the joy of reading the book.
that goes without saying in terms of all of your books, and again, as you pointed out earlier, you do want people to get joy out of reading, as you did yourself growing up as a boy in Massachusetts, which did then color the rest of your life. And that's a whole other interview and a whole other story. But let's go on to another one of your novels. There's many that say that one of your best-known novels was The Mosquito Coast that you mentioned earlier, and that was made into a movie with Harrison Ford. And I know it's kind of like asking who's your favorite child, but do you agree with that statement that it might be one of your better-known novels? And how do you rate this book in terms of your writing? At the time you wrote it, and in the grand scheme now of your over 40 books. And then I'll throw in the question again about what did you think of the film version?
The Mosquito Coast is quite a long novel. The movie's an hour and 20 minutes. To read this book will take you a week. The movie will be over, that's a couple of boxes of popcorn, and it's over. I think there's much more in the book. I love the movie, actually, but it's a movie. It's not the book. Anyone could read that book now. The book was published in '82, but it was a period very much like we're experiencing now that inspired the book. Because in the late 70s, we were worried about the rising price of gas, of foreigners involved in our affairs, the Saudis at the time. It was the Carter administration. I don't know whether you remember the Carter administration, but it wasn't. Interest rates were about 18, 19%. They were very high. The economy was not prospering. Speaking of 1978, 79, and there's an echo of that now. Economic downturn, expensive oil, uncertainty. And at that time, people were saying, this was a great country once. We had it all. We really could run things. We had, oil was, you gas up your car, 25 cents a gallon. Now what do you get? So people were saying that in the 70s. And that's why I wrote the book. So The Mosquito Coast is a book about a guy who says, I've had it. I have had it. We got foreigners running our affairs. The Japanese are taking over. The Saudis are telling us what to do. The price of oil is high. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my family and get the blazes out of here. I'm going to go to Central America, and I'm going to set up my own little perfect United States. I got an invention. I'm going to do things great, and that's what I'm going to do. So Ellie Fox, a.k.a. Harrison Ford, does that. And it's not a successful thing because we take our problems with us. But it's an echo of the times we live in now. So I would say that anyone now who's interested in knowing what, the remedies for what what people are threatening to do, I'm getting out of here, could read The Mosquito Coast, maybe after they finish A Dead Hand.
Well, we are running out of time, but I'd like to ask very quickly that we're going to have to end, I guess. I'm so sorry because you are such an interesting author, and we never did get a chance to talk about your other life and Servedia's Shadow. I'm going to encourage people to buy the books and read them, and particularly this one. Look at all the questions I have left, but we are out of time. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope you'll come back with your next book.
I'd be delighted to come back, and if you spell my name correctly, it's Theroux. Go to your local Borders.
Exactly, or Barnes and Noble. We have two of them here. So this is Jacqueline Bachar. We're going to have to take a little break right now.